In this video, we're going to be finding the shorter side of a right-angled triangle using Pythagoras' theorem. So Pythagoras' theorem can also be used to find the length of a shorter side of a right-angled triangle. So we need to know the hypotenuse and at least one other side. Normally, we recognize Pythagoras' theorem as c squared equals a squared plus b squared, but we can manipulate this to find either a or b. So normally what we would do is you could go minus b squared minus b squared, and we end up with a new equation. We end up with c squared minus b squared equals a squared, and that will let us find a. Now you'll notice that this is this formula up here. So knowing that, we can either find a or b. Now remember, a and b don't really matter, so you only actually kind of need to remember one of these formulas. So I would like to go with a squared equals c squared minus b squared. Right? So if we go in here, find the value of a pronumeral in each of these triangles. So here we have a triangle here. First thing I want to do is I'm actually going to label my sides just so it makes me a little bit clearer where they go. So I know my hypotenuse, or the long side, is my c, and then I can have b and a down here. I'll keep a as a just to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to write down the formula that we're going to use. A squared equals c squared minus b squared. Now, a trick to remember is if you're finding the long side, you're adding things. If you're finding a shorter side, there's a minus. So now that I've got the formula there, I can start substituting in at what we know. So we know a squared is going to equal 32 squared minus 21 squared. So a is going to equal the square root of 32 squared minus 21 squared. And that gives me an answer of 24.15 if I round it to 2 decimal places. Now I need to remember my units and meters. So let's do the next one. Find the value of a pronumeral in this triangle correct to 1 decimal place. So again, let's start by labeling our sides. C, I'll keep my unknown as a and b, and remember a squared equals c squared minus b squared because we're finding a shorter side. So we know a squared is going to equal, sorry, not a this time, it's x squared is going to equal 120 squared minus 75 squared. So x is going to equal the square root of 120 squared minus 75 squared, and that gives us 93.7 if I round it up, centimeters. Lastly, find the value of the pronumeral in the triangle as a surd. So we'll continue doing what we've been doing for all these. We'll label our sides c, a, b, and a squared will be c squared minus b squared. Until you can memorize the formulas, I would be writing down the formula each time you do a question until it's memorized in your head. So e squared is going to equal 84 squared minus 45 squared. E is going to equal the square root of these. Now because we want to leave it as a surd, I just want to solve what is on the inside. So that's going to be 84 squared minus 45 squared. So that's going to be giving me a square root of 5,031, and then centimeters. So our recap, remember the formula is a squared equals c squared minus b squared. When you're trying to find the short side, so if you're finding a short side, you're always dealing with a minus, whereas if you're finding the hypotenuse, you're dealing with a plus. Alright, just remember that. So minuses, you'll be using the short side. Another thing to remember when you're doing these is always write down the formula every question until you can memorize it. And that's it.